Now that we're back on the website, let's take a look at a couple of ways that we can set up a new repository. You'll notice on this page that there are in fact two places where we can set up a new repository. The first one, down here, says New Repository and has this little icon next to it. You'll see that same icon up at the top of the page. That's also a Create New Repository icon. Either one of these will work. I'm going to go ahead and click on this one. Now that we're on this view, we can do a few things. The first thing is coming up with a repository name. Normally that's a hard process, but GitHub likes to throw in a little joke one for us, so we can go ahead and fill in this. Next thing we're going to do is decide whether or not we want to have a description. It's an optional field, and for the time being, since I don't know what a ducking octo meme is, I think I'm going to stick without a description. The third choice we have to make is whether or not we want to make a repository public. This means that it's either going to be open for anyone to get to and see the repository and see everything we've got in there. That doesn't mean they can edit it. That just means they can view it, and that we're not restricting that access. If we want to choose private, we can restrict who is allowed to view the repository. But by doing this, we have to have a paid account if we want to choose the private option. For now, I'm just going to stick with the public one, and we'll see a little bit more about the private ones and how you can restrict the access later. The next thing on this view is initializing the repository with a README. We're going to want to do that. I'm going to explain a little bit about those later, but go ahead and make sure you create one of those now, because that's going to be the description for your project. The real description, not this one. Last but not least, you want to make sure that you include a git ignore file. This is kind of hidden here, you don't necessarily notice it, and you might glance over it, but it's very important. It's going to make your development a lot easier, because this has a list of standard exclusions of different files, and we'll take a look at this, how you can view it, and some ways to customize it later. But for now, just go ahead and pick based on your language. I'm going to go ahead and choose C#, and it's going to include a git ignore file that has exclusions for different C# based project files. You can also choose a license. At this point, I'm just going to go with none and just move on. And there we go. We now have our repository. Now that we've got this repository set up, let's take a look at some of the options that are available to us. I'm going to first dive into the settings. Here you'll notice that we've got a few different settings available to us. The first one here is that we can rename our repository. So we can rename it to whatever we want. If we do this, you'll notice that it tells you exactly what it's going to be naming it to, sort of gives you a visual indication, and if you click on rename, it'll actually do the rename. I'm not going to do that just yet. You can also make another few changes. One of them is you can change which branch is the default branch. So anyone that comes to your repository is going to start out on that one. So if you want to change up your process a little bit, this is a way to make sure that people start in the right place. There are a number of features that come with repositories. One of them is the concept of having a wiki. This is a great way for people to be able to contribute content, have discussions, and be able to edit pages that you might use later for documentation or support. There are a lot of ways you can go with this. So it's a convenient feature that you can just use if and how you want to use it. You can also make sure that your wikis are only able to be edited by your collaborators. So if you don't want other people to be able to contribute to the discussions, you can lock that down. Issues are one of the ways that people can let you know about problems they have or feature requests or other things that they'd like to see added into your project. It's a pretty lightweight way of handling things. This gives you a little bit of project management inside of GitHub. That doesn't mean you can't use your own project management, and the issues in GitHub actually can work with some of the other project management tools out there. A lot of them will actually tie in and pull the issues out of GitHub so that you can synchronize between the two systems. One final feature that we've got that is a very interesting and useful one is GitHub Pages. This lets you create pages for your site. So if you want to have more than just your GitHub repository, if you actually want to have a site that's hosted about your project, you can do that right through GitHub, and it doesn't cost you anything more. The way it works is you just push an HTML site to a branch named gh-pages. You can also use the automatic page generator that's built in here. I'm not going to be covering that right now, but the automatic page generator is an easy tool that gives you a WYSIWYG editor to create your pages. So if you don't want to spend a lot of time setting up your pages for your repository, you can go ahead and do that, and that'll let you get some intro and overview and about pages set up so that people can read a little bit more about your project. And it's nice because it's all stored in source control and easily modifiable. The last part you'll notice is called the danger zone. These are all of the aspects of the settings that you can change that'll have a significant impact. The first one is to make your repository private. Since I don't have a paid account that I'm demonstrating this with, you'll notice that it's suggesting that I upgrade my plan. If I upgrade to a paid account and I can get one of the really cheap accounts, I could get a private repository. And there would be a button on the right that would allow me to create a private repository. Another operation I can do is transfer ownership. This comes up a lot when you want to transfer to an organization from something you started yourself. It happens. You might also just be transferring to another user. So if you're tired of being the person that is maintaining a project, you can pass it to someone else. When you do a transfer, it's actually going to prompt you to type in the name of your repository and the new owner. And the reason that they do this is so that you're very certain that you're transferring the correct repository. This is a little bit harder of a barrier than just a confirmation box, but it prevents you from making a mistake that you might regret. And it gives you a lot of information about what's actually going to happen. This is actually the same style of thing that it does for deleting a repository, because once you delete it, it's gone. It's off the GitHub website. You might still have some local copies of the files and the repositories, but GitHub has forgotten about it. So if you had any wikis, issues, or comments, or you had branches that people didn't have pulled locally anymore, you might run into some problems. So be careful here if you're deleting your repository. They make you type in the name of the repository as confirmation. So it's hard to accidentally do this. And that's pretty much it for the settings that you have access to in GitHub.